My name is Logan Hale. I am 32 years old, and on a Sunday after dinner, while the game played on mute, my family laughed at me for being 32 and still single. I set my fork down, felt the heat of the oven on my left cheek, and said calm as a ledger, "Then where's your money, Cole? I've been feeding this house for 7 years." 2 days later, an email arrived. My name slid into a loan. I never touched a neat little e-signature forged in my handwriting. The room went warm. My blood went cold. But what they didn't know was, before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Your comment and that one tap helped this reach someone staring at a silent living room, wondering if setting boundaries makes them the villain. I grew up in a house where the television was never truly off, just muted, a blue glow washing the living room, while forks clicked and Dad said, "Family helps family," the way other dads said grace. The carpet held the lemon cleaner smell from Saturday chores. Mom plated dinner like it was a negotiation, the bigger chicken breast for Cole, because he's still growing, the smaller one for me, because you're disciplined. I learned to chew discipline like a side dish. I didn't know it back then, but that word would become the rope everyone expected me to hold. At 8, I lined my Hot Wheels along the coffee table by color and model, tiny headlights pointing in the same direction. Order made sense in a way the rest didn't. Mom would smile, my little engineer, then hand Cole the shiniest car and wink like generosity cost nothing. Dad leaned back, one arm over the sofa, and told me how men carry weight without making noise. I wanted to be a man. I practiced silence. I didn't know it then, but silence grows teeth. By 12, my chores had a spreadsheet in my head: trash out Tuesday, lawn on Saturday. Wi-Fi resets anytime the game froze. Cole's chore was charm. He flashed a gap-toothed grin and got promoted to boy who keeps spirits up. At dinner, he'd fake a commentator voice, and everyone laughed. I laughed too. It felt like paying rent in jokes. Years later, hearing that same tone from a finance manager would make my neck go hot. I didn't know it then, but voices can be receipts. When I was 14, I won a science fair ribbon for a little Arduino project that made a lamp brighten when you clapped. The gym smelled like varnish and orange drink, and the ribbon felt like plastic hope. Dad snapped a photo that barely caught me before he swung the camera to where Cole was showing off a magic trick to 3 girls from band. "That's my son," Dad boomed. I held the ribbon anyway. At home, the light from the television slid left to right across my cheek, carving shadow and shine. I stood in that light and tried out a neutral face, a way to look pleased without looking hungry. I didn't know it then, but my face would become a tool. By 16, I had a grocery job with a vest that scratched the back of my neck and a boss who measured minutes like coins. On payday, I folded bills along the same crease and slid a cut into an envelope for house emergencies. The first time the furnace coughed and died in February. The air bit our teeth. Dad made a joke about old houses and old lungs. Mom rubbed her hands together and said, "If we were flush, we'd fix it today." I took the envelope out of my backpack and put it on the table. The bills looked small. Heat returned in a rush that smelled faintly like pennies. Everyone called me a lifesaver. No one asked what the envelope had been saving me from. I didn't know it then, but small rescues teach people to expect a bigger one. College was a commute past cracked sidewalks and the diner with neon that flickered like it was shivering. I studied systems and security, the satisfaction of neat flowcharts and correct answers. On weekends, Dad would text, "Swing by, router acting up." I'd kneel by the blinking lights, restart, reauthenticate. Cole would pass behind me with friends, leaving a trail of cologne and laughter. "Tech support, baby," he'd say, clapping my shoulder. "Best brother in the game." Compliments like that are tip jars. You never keep what they think you do. I didn't know it then, but every fix that took 10 minutes carried a price that would come due in years. I should tell you how I look, because people always imagine a man who says no like a wall, not a door. I'm average height with a trim runner's build. Light brown hair I toned to a warm chestnut hazelnut, really, because it reads cleaner on camera and under office lights. I wear a white fitted shirt that hugs my shoulders and lays straight along my ribs, the kind you don't fidget in. I keep a faint stubble most days, groomed, not cocky, a soft matte base, so the lens doesn't invent shine I didn't agree to. Brows neat, mouth calm. Outside, I'll stand where the sun crosses me left to right, so one side of my face holds a gentle shadow and the other looks like a decision. When I frame a shot, I set the phone to catch me from the knees up, full half body, both hands visible, no elbows cut off, because anything cropped feels like a lie. Background: clean sky or pale wall. Real color, real texture, No filters pretending to be the truth. I didn't know it then, but being seen clearly would become part of the fight. My first lease came with a co-signer line that waited like a dare. I signed a loan proud, and the agent blinked as if I'd performed a trick. 2 years later, Cole claimed his roommate turned feral mid-semester, and he just needed my signature for a quarter 6 months max. Max is a word that grows legs. When the roommate went dark and the landlord's calls learned my number, I set my alarm 20 minutes earlier for a new ritual printing proof. I saved the notices, annotated dates stapled in order. Systems make sense when people don't. I didn't know it then, but binders are armor you can open. Holidays sharpen differences the way cold sharpens air. Christmas smelled like cinnamon and hot plastic from the tree lights. Cole unboxed a smartwatch with a face like a spaceship. I unwrapped wool gloves and a promise from Dad to cover your oil change next time that never learned my car's schedule. At Thanksgiving, I ran the kitchen like a data center turkey, a server that needed maintenance, Windows sides like time jobs cascading on cue. We ate on time because I'm good. After, when the dishwasher choked on a spoon, I watched the little green light blink, an error code, and felt an affection I shouldn't have had for anything that honest. I didn't know it then, but machines would treat me more fairly than some people. In the slow years right after college, the Hale family motto got louder. Family helps family. Mom stitched it into every request like a hymn that wouldn't stop unraveling. When the mortgage came up short, she'd call with a voice that made air sound heavy. Just until your father's contract clears. When Cole's car needed brakes, Dad would say, "He's a kid, Logan. Remember when you were a kid?" I remembered. I paid anyway. The amounts were small enough to be reasonable and large enough to matter. 20 here, 150 there, 200 for a fee. I didn't understand, but agreed to because the room would be warmer if I did. I didn't know it then, but warmth can be an addiction that empties you slowly. Work trained me to think in logs. Every action leaves a line. So during a dull Tuesday, I started a personal audit, a spreadsheet titled Hail Support, with columns for date, amount, purpose, promise, outcome. By the end of that first night, the total at the bottom surprised me. By the end of the third month, it scared me. It wasn't a single prize. It was gravel poured steadily into a pocket until the fabric gave way. I didn't know it then, but the day a number scares you is the day your life starts to change. Cole flamed out of a side business that existed mostly as merch and captions. He posted photos of stacks of tees with captions about hustle. The shirts stayed stacked. When the storage unit came due, my phone lit up. "Just bridge me," he said. "I'll flip this next drop." Dad chimed in with a man-to-man call about believing in family. Mom added a text with 6 hearts and 1 praying hands. I drove to the unit, paid the balance, and left with a receipt that felt like a verdict. I didn't know it then, but I had already built the first third of the binder that would end Thanksgiving. There's a diner off Route 8 with a neon coffee cup that sputters and a waitress who calls everyone babe like she's saving you from a worse name. Dad likes to hold court there. One late summer evening, he slid into a booth and tried to sell me on a philosophy: sacrifice now for peace later. He meant my sacrifice for their peace. "You're good at this," he said, tipping his chin at the stack of bills I'd brought. "To negotiate a sell plan. Mess? You think clearly under pressure." I stirred my coffee, watched the cream ribbon and vanish. "Pressure is for tires," I said. "People need oxygen." He laughed like I'd told a joke. I didn't know it then, but jokes are where truth hides when it's not safe to stand up straight. When I bought my analog watch, it wasn't nostalgia. It was a timer that didn't ping. The tick is quiet, but present, a metronome for sentences that need to land. At night in my apartment, I'd iron a white shirt, set the watch on the counter, and listen to the seconds stitch themselves into something solid. In the mirror, the left to right kitchen light carved my face into halves, one side warm, one side cool. I practiced answers that weren't apologies. I practiced the stillness of my shoulders, the way my hands would rest flat on a table, fingers aligned with the binder's spine. I didn't know it then, but bodies tell the truth, paperwork proves. The week before everything broke, I sat with my laptop and audited 7 years of just this once. Transfers to Mom, check. Venmo to Cole, check. A dozen "I'll pay you Friday" that landed in a field labeled status, no. The sum crept toward a number I didn't think fit inside one person. I took a breath and clicked AutoSum. 86,000. The screen felt colder. My studio felt smaller. I looked at the white shirt draped on the chair and thought, "You are not a napkin." I closed the laptop and stood by the window. Outside, streetlights cut the dark into slices. A bus hissed. Somewhere in the building, a baby laughed then cried. I pressed my palm against the cold glass and saw my reflection overlaid on the city half-lit half-shadow. Use your name for you, I told the glass, and it looked like it agreed. I didn't know it then, but the next time someone joked about my life, I would not pay the punchline. I didn't tell anyone the number. I carried it around like a hot coin. 86,000. It whispered under ordinary sounds, the kettle clicking off the elevator cable, humming the radiator, sighing thin heat. I went to work and wrote clean tickets, triaged outages, and kept a calm voice on bridge calls while the figure sat in my pocket and warmed my thigh. When lunch came, I walked a loop around the block past a loading dock that smelled like diesel and hot cardboard, and thought about what counts as love when love keeps arriving with an invoice. I didn't know it then, but naming the number had already changed the story. All that was left was to admit it out loud. The first person I said anything real to was not family. It was a banker. The branch lobby smelled like toner and wet coats, and somebody had spilled cinnamon on the coffee station, so the air felt like a cookie. A brass plate on the counter read Jordan Patel in lowercase with a polite period. Jordan shook my hand the way people do when they aren't selling you anything. What brings you in, he asked. Prevention, I said. And paper. We sat at his desk under a fluorescent panel that hummed like a fluorescent panel. I slid over my ID, my credit reports, and a summary I'd printed, because screens are too easy to scroll past. He read faster than most people. Listen. We can place a credit freeze, he said, tapping keys. And a fraud alert. We can also add a note, no authorizations by phone, no. He's right here, scripts. In person only with government ID. Keys clicked. A small printer started up and told the room it was important. He handed me 2 forms to initial to sign and a copy of each. You're not the first person to try to save his future from his family, he said, voice neutral as an accountant. But you might be the first to arrive before the fire. I didn't know it then, but Jordan would become the line that held when the tug of war started. That same week, my manager, Tara Nguyen, called me into a meeting room that smelled like dry erase and aftershave. You've been carrying a lot quietly, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Inside a compensation adjustment I'd earned 6 months ago, and she'd fought to make retroactive, plus an email about a relocation track the company wanted to restart. No pressure, she said. But you deserve options that don't have your brother's name on them. The room's glass wall reflected us back, me in my white fitted shirt, sleeves clean at the wrist, jaw shaved smooth, because smooth reads calm, Tara with her hair coiled at the nape and the exact patience I wished church had taught me. Thank you, I said, and felt something unclench lower than breath. I didn't know it then, but the promise of a door changes how you stand in a room. At Mom's house, that Sunday football murmured on mute, and the living room lamps cast that same amber our house had learned decades ago. Cole sprawled on the couch with a bowl of chips balanced on his stomach, a small triumph of gravity. How's bachelor life, Logan? He asked, chewing like it was a performance. Still married to spreadsheets, I smiled. They listen when I talk. He held up his phone to show me a mock-up of a logo for a business that didn't exist yet. All I need is a little seed cash, he said. And a guarantor. Easy. Dad smirked like I'd run right into a joke they'd set up hours ago. Mom touched my arm and said, you know your brother isn't good with forms. I looked at the television. A slow-motion tackle rolled a player into the turf, and he sprang up as if pain had been edited out. I am not a form, I said. I didn't know it then, but any sentence that starts with I am not should end with a door closing. There were quieter rescues, too. The time Mom's car made a noise like a fork in a garbage disposal, and the mechanic used the phrase catastrophic failure while wiping his hands. I paid the bill, and the smell of rubber and metal filed itself in my head, next to a number I didn't tell anyone. The time Dad came up short on the mortgage just this once, and I transferred enough to make the account breathe again, then stayed up till 1 flagging the transaction in my sheet, like a librarian who knows which book gets stolen most. The time Cole posted a story in the passenger seat of a test drive car, sunglasses big as a mask, caption manifesting with 3 sparkles. My phone rang 20 minutes later, from a number that sounded like a pop-up ad. We can do a quick pre-approval, the finance manager chirped. I said no, and then the email arrived anyway. Great news. Your application is in review, my name, tucked into the co-applicant field like a stowaway. I screenshotted it, timestamp and all, and felt something steady inside me that wasn't anger, wasn't fear, just alignment. I didn't know it then, but alignment would be the only temperature that kept me from boiling. The second lean revealed itself like mold behind wallpaper, quiet, inevitable, old. Aaron Soto, a forensic-minded accountant with a pencil that made precise little noises, sat at my kitchen table one evening while the radiator clicked and the light moved across the counter like a tide. She had printed pages from the property records office. Mr. Lansing had stamped them with a red seal that looked like an old cigar burn. This, she said, tapping a paragraph, is a second lien placed 18 months ago. Adjustable rate, tied to shop expansion. Cole's failed side business smiled from the line between euphemism and fraud. It's about to reset, she added, circling a date that made my skin cool. When it does, the payment leaps. I stared at the page until the letters stopped looking like letters and started looking like a set of choices somebody made when they were very sure I would be soft. I didn't know it then, but interest rates tell their own morality tale. The night I found the scan of my old ID in a folder on Mom's shared computer, I sat in the dark for a long time listening to the refrigerator cycle on and off. The file had my face with hair darker and eyes still learning their edges. A second file sat beside it named Logan E. Sig, PNG. When I clicked, my heart lurched the way the body does when a step is shorter than you thought. It was a transparent image of my signature clipped neat. I closed the folder, reopened it to make sure I wasn't hallucinating, and then took photos of the screen with my phone like a tourist at a crime scene. My hands were steady. My breath wasn't. I didn't know it then, but steadiness is a muscle that grows where you repeat it. I met Ava Chin in an office that believed in glass and straight lines. She greeted me with a palm that met mine entirely and eyes that did not flinch. I placed my binder on the table tabs, green for transfers, yellow for leases, red for anything that bent the law's patience. She flipped, skimmed, asked exactly 3 questions. "You've already done most of my job," she said, and the compliment landed, like a permission slip. "We send a demand letter. 30 days. They remove your name from anything it's on. They make right the misapplied funds. If the e-signature appears again, we escalate to criminal." Meanwhile, she slid a template across affidavit of non-authorization. Credit freeze stays. All communication in writing. I signed my name the old way with a pen that left a small groove. I didn't know it then, but it's a special kind of comfort when a stranger puts the right nouns in the right order for you. On my way home, the sky turned the color of steel wool. I stopped at the property records office again because sometimes you need to touch the room where bad ideas go to register themselves. Mr. Lansing worked behind a counter with a bell that didn't need ringing. He slid manila folders under the glass like a dealer who only sells facts. "Public record," he said. Ugly is still public. The fluorescent light made paper look pale as bread dough. A woman in line wore a perfume that reminded me of Thanksgiving tablecloths stored in cedar. My phone buzzed once. "Hail fam." Mom sent a heart, Dad sent a thumbs up, Cole sent a meme that said "Real men don't hide behind paperwork." I typed and deleted, then typed again. "Real men read what they sign." I didn't send it. I took another copy of the lien instead. I didn't know it then, but restraint is also a receipt. Back in my apartment, I stood in front of the mirror and checked the same details I always check before walking into a room where people want to move me. Hair toned, warm, no flyaways. White fitted shirt clean, placket straight. Collar points crisp, not aggressive. Jawline neat. Matte on the forehead where cameras exaggerate shine. Watch face centered on the wrist bone, shoulders level. I pulled the curtain a few inches to let the light stripe across from left to right, casting the right side of my face in a soft gradient and leaving the left bright enough to read. I set the phone on a shelf to frame from my knees up, both hands in view, and spoke once into the empty room, testing the sentence I needed to believe before I asked anyone else to. "My name is Logan Hale," I said. "My name is not an ATM. There were small scenes I keep like index cards. Mom calling to ask if I could swing by because the printer wouldn't connect, and while I'm on the floor holding a USB cord in my teeth, she says, 'You know it breaks your father's heart that you're so cold.'" The cord slipped and tapped my chin. "Cold is the temperature of facts," I said. "Love can handle room temperature." A Tuesday evening at the diner where Dad ordered pie he didn't finish and gave me a napkin speech about legacy, about sons who step up. "You're the steady one," he said, and the compliment came dressed like a trap. A Saturday morning when Cole asked to borrow my spare key so he could grab something, and then 3 days later appeared in my apartment with a folder he laid on my table like a trophy. Inside, printouts of a HELOC in progress, my name typed clean where a line waited for ink, a little PNG of my signature pasted like it belonged. "We can align later," he said as if we were colleagues arguing over a slide deck. My throat felt like I had swallowed a rock with a corner. I opened the window an inch to let cold air insist I was still here. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time my door was unlocked for him. On the last night before Thanksgiving week, I put everything in order the way I always do before a deployment. Binder tabs aligned. Affidavit copies stacked. Jordan's card in the front sleeve. Ava's letter on heavyweight paper that made a nice sound when you flicked the edge. Photos of the folder on Mom's computer. Screenshots of the dealership email timestamp included. Aaron's report with the $86,000 number printed so big it couldn't pretend to be an accident. I brewed coffee strong enough to hold a spoon upright and stood by the window watching a light turn the street from black to gray. Somewhere in the building a neighbor sang off-key while showering, and it made me want a future where I knew my neighbors for ordinary reasons. I touched the top of the binder and felt the plastic warm under my palm. Use it, I said to the quiet. Use your name for you. I didn't know it then, but the email that would try to slither my name into a new loan was already scheduled by someone who assumed I'd still be the soft shape they could pour into any mold. I didn't know it then, but a neighbor named Mrs. Wickham would later take a picture of a for sale sign I hadn't predicted and text it to me, with a note that said simply be kind to yourself. What I did know finally was this: my life would not be measured in how warmly I kept other rooms. It would be measured in what I refused to set on fire to keep them that way. Thanksgiving week started loud. Hail Fam lit up at 7:12 a.m. with Mom's photo of the polished dining table runner iron silver, catching the window light captioned, "Keep it sweet this year, please." Dad followed with "Family helps family." Cole added a boomerang from a dealership parking lot, sunglasses on fingers flashing a peace sign. Caption manifesting. The phone buzzed on the counter like a trapped wasp. I let it. At 8:03 a.m. an unknown number rang. I knew the cadence before I picked up sales. Smile poured through a headset. "Hi Logan, this is Kayla with Ridgeview Motors. We can do a quick verbal just to log your awareness as co." "No," I said. "No verbal. No awareness. No co-anything. A beat. Are you with your parents? We can loop them and record it for underwriting. In person. With ID. Or never," I said and hung up. My jaw ached for a second the way muscles do when you stop clenching without noticing you started. I poured coffee that tasted like a penny at the bottom of a mug and opened my laptop. An email waited. "Great news, your application is in review." My name sat in the co-applicant field like a stranger wearing my jacket. Under it, a red banner I hadn't seen before flickered to life: "Secondary applicant identity verification failed." I took a screenshot, then another with the clock in the corner. Documentation beats drama. It always will. Hail Fam pinged again. "Mom, your brother is sensitive. Don't make him feel small. Dad, handle this like men face to face." "Cole, you're 32 and scared of a signature? That's wild." I typed slow. "Heads up, my credit is frozen and a fraud alert is on file. Any attempt to add my name triggers a call to me and a record at the bank. Everything in writing from now on." I hit send and felt the room change temperature by 2 degrees. Mom replied with a single tear emoji. Dad wrote, "We'll talk tonight." Cole wrote, "Adopted behavior, to be honest." I stared at the words until they went blurry. Then I took a screenshot and put the phone face down. I didn't answer. Some sentences are invitations to drown. By 9:30, I was at the bank anyway because peace arrives with paper. The lobby smelled like toner and wet wool. Jordan waved me over. "They tried again," he said, without hello, tapping a screen. "Freeze held. Alert logged." I added a courtesy call note. "Any new attempt triggers a branch outreach to you, not a family member." A small printer chattered out copies like a bird. "Initial here," he said. I signed my actual name with an actual pen and watched the wedding shine for a second before it dried. "You're doing this right," Jordan said softly. "Systems respect friction." I slid the papers into my binder and felt my pulse drop into a quieter gear. On the walk back to my car, the wind knifed through my shirt and made me aware of my shoulders in that way cold does. A text from Tara blinked on my lock screen. "Proud of you for guarding your capacity. Ping me if you need coverage today." I typed thanks and meant it more than she could know. Work wasn't an escape. It was the one room where cause and effect still shook hands. Back home, I opened every account I'd ever let someone ride along on. Netflix sign out of all devices. Paramount new password. Utilities remove authorized users. Cell plan new PIN. Take back the hotspots. Kill data sharing. Each click felt like closing a window before the storm figured out which side of the house it wanted. At the end, I sent one calm text to Hail Fam, I've removed my name and access from any services I pay for. If you need help setting up your own, I'll send instructions. No discussion. I hit send and immediately muted the thread. The silence was like a clean shirt, plain breathable mine. The dealership called again at noon. I didn't pick up. A voicemail landed with syrup. Hey Logan, just circling back, underwriters really just need a quick I'm aware to move this forward. If you're with your mom and dad, we can patch you in. This isn't binding. I saved it, forwarded it to my folder, and labeled it with the date. Then I emailed the dealership's generic address, one line, no heat, remove my name from any present or pending applications. Any recorded awareness is invalid. My credit file is frozen. Do not contact my relatives about my authorization. I CC'd myself and Jordan. The paper trail took a breath and stood a little taller. At 1:22 p.m., Dad called. I let it ring twice. Swing by the house, he said. Man to man. We can talk here, I said. On text. In email. He blew air through his nose the way men on television do when they're about to teach someone a lesson. You can't spreadsheet your way out of blood, he said. I won't spreadsheet my way into debt, I said. He tried gentler. Your mother's exhausted. Don't ruin her holiday. I'm not ruining anything, I said. I'm stopping the leak. He hung up without goodbye, the way people do when they think a door has an obligation to stay open. I ate standing up, toast, peanut butter, a banana that wasn't sweet enough, and stared at the binder like it might offer a script. The tabs were a small rainbow green for money I'd given, yellow for promises that never learned to mature, red for the law's patience, blue for what belonged solely to me. I slid Jordan's fresh printouts into red and felt relief the way you feel a seatbelt lock at the exact right second. Not joy. Safety. The afternoon sagged toward gray. In the hallway, Mrs. Whitcomb's door opened and closed. She hummed 3 bars of something old. I sat and drafted a message to Ava dealership attempting recorded awareness workarounds. All calls saved. Bank added note, re-branch only authorization. Demand letter ready to go. She responded 13 minutes later, ready. Certify tomorrow if needed. Also stop answering their calls. Paper will be kinder to you than you're being to yourself. I laughed once. She wasn't wrong. At 4:05, the Hail Fam mute betrayed me with a vibration I felt more than heard. Cole, if you loved us, you'd make this easy. Mom, please don't embarrass your father in front of the family on Thursday. Dad, tonight 7 p.m. diner. Be an adult. I looked at the messages until the words lost meaning. Love. Easy. Adult. Words that show up like coupons and expire when you read the fine print. I typed no to the diner, then deleted it, then typed it again and sent it. My thumb trembled. My voice wouldn't have. Sunset came early, a bruise sliding down the block. I ironed a white shirt anyway, habit, and watched the light move from left to right across my face in the mirror, one half bright, one half shaded. I like that look. It tells the truth about how most rooms feel. I checked the frame on my phone, the knees-up shot that proves I'm not hiding my hands. I didn't record a message. I stood there and let my jaw find the soft version of firm, the one that doesn't crack when someone throws the wrong kind of kindness at it. At 6:12, a final ping. Kayla again via text this time. Hey, if you change your mind, we can grandfather you and just need a 30-second clip. Acknowledging the app. I typed one line, please keep my name out of your files. Then I blocked the number. My stomach dropped, then leveled. Blocking isn't cruelty. It's good plumbing. The hallway was quiet. Outside, a siren wailed and faded. I stacked the binder, wallet, keys, phone the way I always do before I leave, left to right like a sentence. I told myself I'd sleep. Then someone knocked. 3 light taps. Then a pause. Then 2 heavier ones, rhythmic like a habit. I knew that knock. I knew it in my bones the way a dog knows the home car before it turns the corner. I didn't move. My heart did. It landed once hard, like a fist on wood. I didn't open the door. Not yet. I stood still and listened to the old habits breathing on the other side. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't rush to make them comfortable. The knock came again. 3 light taps. Pause. 2 heavier ones. I checked the peephole. Mom's hair neat as a Sunday. Dad beside her, jaw set. Cole, a step back, sunglasses on at dusk like the hallway fluorescence might paparazzi him. I opened the door on the chain. Text first, I said. We're family, Dad said. That's why you should text, I said. Mom's voice softened. We just want to drop something off. A manila folder rose into frame like a peace offering. I slid the chain, opened the door half a body's width, and kept my foot against it. Dad nudged forward anyway, a habit more than a shove. They were inside before the hinge could object. Cole brought the smell of cologne and dealership coffee. 10 minutes, I said. Then you go. Mom laid the folder on my counter and patted it the way people pat a dog before it bites. It's just paperwork, she said. We didn't want you blindsided by what I said. My name. Cole smirked. Relax, audit boy. We'll align. I pulled on nitrile gloves from under the sink because habits can also be boundaries. Inside the folder, printouts clipped with a black binder clip each page, trying to wear legitimacy. A HELOC in progress. My name clean in a field where a pin line should live. A low-res PNG of my signature drop shadowed like makeup. A notary block with a stamp that looked tired. Behind it, a color scan of my old ID, slightly crooked with a reflection line across the laminate like someone photographed the screen of a screen. Where did you get this? I asked, tapping the ID. Mom flushed. I keep everything. For taxes. For theft, I said. Dad's mouth tightened. Don't use that word in your own home. My home is why I'm using it, I said. Cole reached for the papers. I moved them out of his hand's path by an inch. He sighed big. It's just a formality, he said. Underwriters need to see we're all aligned. Aligned is not a signature, I said. Dad found his sermon voice. This is a bridge, he said. We refinance, we stabilize, we sell if we have to. You make this easy, we all breathe. I pointed at the notary block. Who was present for this stamp? Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at Cole. Cole looked at me. He was Cole said, meaning me. By phone. No, I said. By law. Silence did a tight circle. The radiator clicked like a metronome, running out of patience. I took photos of every page one by one, the way tourists take pictures of ruins. Timestamp on. Then I slipped the stack into a clear sleeve and labeled it with a sticky tab false. You're overreacting, Mom whispered. We're drowning. I'm not a life jacket, I said. I'm a person. Dad tried the old path. You're 32, he said. Act like a man. I am, I said. I'm saying no without shouting. Cole leaned on the counter and smiled like we were boys again, and he had just hidden my keys. You know what's crazy? You think this makes you strong. He thumbed the edge of my binder. It just makes you lonely. Strong is returning the things with my name on them, I said. Lonely is realizing you only liked me when I was useful. He rolled his eyes. God, you love sentences. I love boundaries, I said. Dad's voice dropped an octave. You will not embarrass us on Thursday. Then don't ask me to, I said. Mom's eyes glossed. Please, she said, and the word carried 20 years of table setting and sighing. You have 7 minutes left, I said. Dad exhaled a hard theatrical sound. We'll see you at the diner. 7. Be a man. I'll see you Thursday, I said. You'll see the binder. They left in a knot of offended air. The door clicked. I set my back against it and let the wood tell me it was solid. Through the thin wall, Mrs. Whitcomb coughed twice, the gentle hack of someone who has listened to more than she meant to. I took off the gloves, dropped them in the trash, washed my hands until the water went from hot to skin. I called Ava on speaker and sent photos while the faucet hissed. She didn't raise her voice. Good, she said. Chain of custody. Send me the originals if they left them. They did, I said, looking at the sleeve labeled false. Then tonight you email the dealership to withdraw any applications listing you. CC Jordan. Tomorrow morning we certify the demand letter and the affidavit of non-authorization. And Logan, no more open doors. Copy, I said. I texted Jordan the photos and a single line false e-sign attempt, visible notary defect, ID scan from family computer. He called within 9 minutes. Freeze is holding, he said. We're placing a branch note that any attempt to add you triggers a red flag callback to you only. Also save that notary stamp. We'll give fraud a holiday present. His chuckle was gentle, not cruel. You okay? I'm steady, I said, and surprised myself by not lying. At 8:04, Erin arrived with a tote bag of paper. She has a way of entering a room like a graph getting clearer. She spread out property records, bank statements, her own printouts. Total support over 7 years, she said, tapping a column. 86,000 and change. Plus the HELOC prep. Plus the second lien I flagged earlier. She circled a date. ARM resets in 3 weeks. Payment jumps. If they don't refinance or sell, they hit a wall. What happens if they refinance? I asked. They run into your freeze, she said. Assuming they keep trying to drag you across. We made a heat map green for you. Tried to be good yellow for you. We're too good for too long red. for they broke the law's patience. The red squares looked like a constellation spelling a word I'd been avoiding. I didn't say it. I didn't need to. Erin saw it anyway. I'm proud of you, she said. Most people come to me after the explosion. Am I boring? I asked, half laughing. She smiled. You're careful. Careful is expensive at first and cheaper later. When she left, the apartment felt like a server room after you've silenced the alarms. Present panic gone. I printed Ava's demand letter on heavyweight paper because weight matters when it lands. 30 days. Remove my name. Undo what you can. Stop what you can't. All further contact in writing. I slid it into the front of the binder behind a transparent cover page like a captain behind glass. Hail Fam vibrated on mute. I opened it because sometimes you look at the stove even after you've turned the gas off. Mom's last message read, please, don't make a scene in front of Aunt Nora. Dads will settle this quietly. Cole's man, imagine needing a lawyer to talk to your mom. I typed one private text to Mom. I will be calm. I will be kind. I will be clear. Then I set the phone down and let it breathe by itself. I ironed the white shirt again, even though it didn't need it, because steady hands need work. In the mirror, the light traced me from left to right, soft shadow on one side, simple brightness on the other. Honey chestnut hair in place. Stubble neat. Collar points crisp. Watch ticking quietly on my wrist bone. I practiced a single sentence until it fit my mouth without air in it. My name is not your paperwork. I slept in pieces like a song with missing bars. In the morning, I woke before the alarm and made coffee that didn't taste like pennies for once. I packed the binder flat, no bulges. Jordan's card front sleeve. Ava's letter second. Erin's total bold at the end like a bell. I slid a pin next to it that leaves a groove. I placed my spare house key on the counter and practiced setting it down without shaking. It made a tiny sound that felt like punctuation. Outside, the air had that thin holiday bite cold that makes your molars notice each other. I locked my door, tested the handle, checked it twice the way people who've learned pay attention do. Down the hall, Mrs. Whitcomb opened her door with a squeak. She held up a small envelope. Certified letter came for you, she said. I signed because the mailman knows I'm nosy. Thank you, I said. Be kind to yourself, she said. It's loud out there. It's louder in there, I said, nodding toward the world. She smiled. Then keep your binder close. I walked to my car, breath, making little clouds binder under my arm like a loaf from a good bakery. The sky was a pale, unforgiving blue. Somewhere across town, my family was setting a table and practicing the old lines. I pictured the turkey steaming, the television on mute, the way Dad's knife gleams under that chandelier. I pictured the empty seat I'd choose and the place where I'd set the binder. I didn't have to imagine the rest. I'd already written it down. The house was already warm when I stepped inside, heat from the oven pushing left to right like a hand across my face. The chandelier humming, the television playing the game on mute, so the players looked like ghosts doing drills. Mom moved through the kitchen with a practiced smile, smoothing a wrinkle from the runner that no one else could see. Dad stood at the head of the table with a carving knife he sharpened, even when it didn't need it. Cole sat sideways in his chair, one leg, bouncing bracelets, clicking like tiny turnstiles. Aunt Nora was there too, the kind of aunt who watches for weather and keeps a sweater in the car. Mom tried first. Keep it sweet, she said, eyes on me. Voice like icing, pretending not to hide a dry cake. Sweet doesn't mean silent, I said. My voice landed flat, not loud. We took our seats. The air smelled like sage butter and the faint iron tang of the knife against the sharpening steel. Dad lifted his glass. Family helps family, he said. The old stamp. I put my palm on the binder. The plastic was warm under my hand. Before we eat, I said, I'm putting a few things on the table. The fork sounds paused. The television showed a slow-motion tackle, grass flecks floating like confetti. I slid the binder between the mashed potatoes and the rolls, the spine aligned with the edge of the tablecloth, the tabs a quiet rainbow. Caleb, Dad began using a name that isn't mine when he wants me smaller. It's Logan, I said, and opened the binder. Layer 1. I drew out a stack of pages, each with a green tab. Transfers. Venmos. Receipts. Memo lines that read furnace breaks, rent shortfall, deposit, cosign, utilities past due. Dates neat down the left, amounts clean on the right. I fanned them like cards in a fair game and set them where the steam from the turkey curled over them like fog over a road. These are 7 years of I'll pay you Friday, I said. 86,000 and change. Erin checked the math. Mom stared as if the numbers were in a language she once knew. You kept All of this I kept what I gave away, I said. So I wouldn't have to argue about whether it happened. Cole snorted. Cute receipts. They don't need to be cute, I said. They need to be true. Dad tapped the top page with the back of his knuckle. That was then. This is now. Patterns don't care about calendars, I said, voice steady. They care about habits. Layer 2. Yellow tabs. I slid out the email headers. Great news, your application is in review, my name tucked into co-applicant like a stowaway. Below it the screenshot with the red bar, secondary applicant identity verification failed. Under that the dealership voicemail transcripts. Just need a quick, I'm aware, on a recorded line, just to keep underwriting cozy. Next, the bank confirmations on Jordan's letterhead, fraud alert placed. Credit file frozen. No authorizations by phone. In person only with government ID. Branch note, any attempt to add client triggers callback to client. I placed them in front of Dad, like they were instructions for a machine he claimed to understand. This is your verbal awareness trick, I said, looking at Cole. This is the freeze you ran into at 8:03 a.m., 1117 a.m. and noon. This is the part where the system respects friction. Mom's voice went paper-cut soft. We wouldn't, you did, I said, tapping the timestamps. And the bank said no for me, so I didn't have to say it a dozen times. Aunt Nora's eyes tracked the bold text. In person only, she read. That seems reasonable. Cole rolled his shoulders. You act like you're a lawyer. I act like an adult, I said. Dad set the knife down. The blade rang against the board, a thin bell. If the car goes bad, we've got you, he said. It won't. But if. I won't be the if, I said. Layer 3. Red tabs. Property records. Mr. Lansing's stamp pressed red and honest into the page. You could feel the impression with your thumb. This, I said, sliding the sheet toward Dad, is the second lien you signed 18 months ago for shop expansion. Adjustable rate. It resets in 3 weeks. When it does, the payment jumps. Dad didn't reach for it. He stared at the seal like it might apologize. We did what we had to. You did what you chose to, I said, with my name sitting nearby like a spare key. I laid down the notary block from the HELOC, in progress, the e-sign printout with my signature PNG floating too clean on a line that deserved ink. The scan of my old ID with the glare strip across the laminate. This, I said, tapping the stamp is defective. This, I said, tapping the PNG is theft. This, I said, tapping the ID you took from your own computer because you keep everything for taxes. Mom's mouth trembled. We were drowning. I'm not a life jacket, I said. I'm a person. Silence opened like a door to a room nobody wanted. The chandelier hummed. The oven fan sighed. Somewhere in the kitchen, a pan popped as something settled. I slid out the last document and laid it on the table with 2 fingers. The paper was heavy. It made a sound when it landed. Ava's letter. Demand. 30 days. I read it the way I read changelogs at work. Precise in a register that makes people sit up even when they think they disagree. Within 30 calendar days, remove my name from any application account or lien where it appears or is intended to appear. Reverse or make right any funds misapplied. Cease any attempt to obtain authorization by phone or recording. All communication in writing. Failure to comply will result in a criminal complaint regarding forgery and identity theft and a civil action for damages. Dad's eyebrows climbed a millimeter, enough to count. You brought a lawyer to Thanksgiving. I brought paper, I said. Because paper tells the same story tomorrow. Cole blew out a laugh. You're unbelievable. I'm documented, I said. Mom put her hand on the tablecloth as if feeling for a pulse. You can't do this to your family. I'm not doing anything to you, I said. I'm stopping you from doing things to me. Dad leaned in, elbows, heavy hands clasped like a referee about to flip a coin. Apologize for your tone, he said, voice even dangerous. Promise to help. We eat. Tone is free, I said. My name isn't. Cole's phone buzzed. He tilted it toward me, a message from the finance manager. Any chance we can grab a quick, I'm aware from your brother underwriters, are standing by. He waggled his eyebrows like the world was on his side. I picked up my water, drank until the 3 dots disappeared, and set the glass down. We're done using quick as a weapon, I said. Aunt Nora cleared her throat. Maybe we let Logan finish without adjectives. Dad cut her a look sharp enough to shave. No one's stopping him. Free to speak isn't free to be heard, she said. Her voice didn't rise. It landed. I turned the letters on the table so everyone could read them without craning. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fill up space. I let the pages do what they were made to do. I'm not your cosigner, I said. I'm not your guarantor. My signature is not a family fundraiser. If a document has my name and not my wet signature, it doesn't have me. If a phone call says I said yes, it's lying. If a plan assumes I will fix it, redo the plan. Mom's eyes filled and spilled. If we fall, she whispered, will you watch? If you fall because I didn't climb under your feet, yes, I said. I'll hand you a rope and instructions. I won't tie it around my neck. Dad stared at me like he was remembering the boy who reset the router without being asked. You'll be alone for Christmas. I can make a tree in a studio, I said. They sell them small. A fat bubble of silence rose and broke. The turkey steamed. The cranberries shone like stoplights. The room waited for me to flinch. I reached into my pocket and set my spare house key on the table beside the letter. The metal made a small, honest clink. No more let yourself in, I said. If you want me, invite me. In writing. Mom flinched like the key had bitten her. Dad's jaw worked. Cole stared surprised into quiet. I closed the binder. The thud was soft, a period, not a slam. I folded my napkin once and placed it on the table like a flag I wasn't waving anymore. Eat, I said, because somebody needed to say it. The food will get cold. No one moved. Aunt Nora reached first, scooped potatoes, passed the bowl like peace can be practical. Uncle, who'd stayed quiet, asked if anyone wanted more rolls. The room remembered how to be a room. Cole looked up from his phone with a different expression, anger sure, but also something like calculation learning its limits. You really won't sign, he said half to himself. I really won't, I said. Dad picked up the carving knife and set it down twice without cutting. The blade flashed. The chandelier hummed. The game on television showed a man running toward a line and stopping exactly where he meant to. I pushed my chair back. The scrape was quiet. I lifted the binder and slid the demand letter into the front sleeve secure behind its clear cover. The watch on my wrist ticked softly, stitching the moment into something that would hold. Honey chestnut hair, neat white shirt, smooth shadow on one side of my face, light on the other, the truth about the room drawn in light. Mom's voice followed me to the threshold, small and sharp. Logan, please don't make a scene. I turned, let a cold smile find my mouth, not cruel, just finished. Scenes are what people call the truth when they don't like the angle. I stepped into the hallway. The heat dropped a degree. The air felt normal, breathable. Behind me, forks finally scraped plates. Someone laughed the way you laugh when you want to prove you're fine. The door closed with a clean, ordinary click. I didn't slam the door. I walked to my car with the binder tucked under my arm and the key left cooling on their table. Night had that thin holiday bite. Breath came out in little clouds and vanished before it could become proof. I sat behind the wheel and didn't start the engine. I unfolded grandpa-level paper, Ava's letter, Jordan's confirmations, Aaron's totals, like maps you only open when you're finally willing to read them. My hands were steady. My throat wasn't. Back in my apartment, the radiator hissed a high, polite note. I set the binder on the counter like a fresh loaf from a good bakery and made tea that tasted a little metallic because the kettle needs retiring. I opened my laptop. An email popped up before the water-cooled subject line, bright as a flare, application withdrawn. Body unable to verify, secondary applicant due to frozen credit file. Cannot proceed as structured. I took a screenshot. Then another with the clock in the corner. Documentation beats drama. Gravity does the rest. Hail fam blinked even on mute. Dad, we'll talk tomorrow. Mom, please don't be cruel. Cole, congrats, you won. I let the thread sit there like leftover gravy, skinning over. A separate text arrived from Aunt Nora, proud of your calm. Keep everything in writing. I replied with a photo of the demand letter under its clear cover and wrote 30 days. She sent back a simple heart, the small, unexcited kind that means belief, not performance. I forwarded the dealership email to Jordan and Ava. Jordan's reply landed at 9:11 p.m. Freeze and alert functioning as intended. Fraud unit opening a file tied to the notary defect you documented. Keep the originals safe. Ava wrote 2 minutes later, demand letter queued for certified mail first thing. If they attempt any recorded awareness, send me the file. It strengthens criminal. Also remember, silence is a strategy, not a punishment. Silence can be generous. I turned off every notification except alarms and watched the apartment return to ordinary volume. The clock's small ticks, a neighbor's muffled laugh, a siren lifting then fading 2 streets over. I moved a modest sum from the old CD into a checking account with just my name on it, paid the deposit on a winter course I'd been postponing and bookmarked the relocation packet Tara sent. Revenge didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like not lighting myself to keep someone else warm. Morning found me before the alarm. I brewed coffee that finally didn't taste like pennies and stepped onto the balcony. Cold air cut clean lines along my cheek. The sun came from the left and laid a soft stripe across my face, shadow on one side, light on the other. The truth about most rooms. My phone buzzed once. Mrs. Whitcomb early with a photo taken from across town, a for sale sign staked crooked in my parents' yard, the grass winter flat around it. Caption: be kind to yourself. I stared at the tilt of the sign and felt nothing dramatic, just the quiet of a future that refused to be co-signed. Ava called at noon, all business. We'll hold the criminal complaint in a sealed envelope for 30 days, she said. If they unwind, honestly remove your name, correct what can be corrected. We let gravity finish its sermon. If they try again, we file. I looked at the binder, the tabs, like small, bright truths. 30 days, I said. In writing. That night I ironed a white shirt I didn't need to wear and practiced one sentence in the mirror until it sat right on my mouth. My name is not your paperwork. In the glass, the frame caught me, knees up, hands visible, no elbows, cropped background clean. Real color. Real texture. No filters pretending to be the truth. They thought cornering me would make me smaller. They didn't realize they'd handed me a weapon that doesn't run out time. Stamped certified. Notarized correctly. My name written only by me. Before you click away, tell me the moment that hit you hardest, the joke that wasn't a joke, the door I didn't open, the page I laid on the table. Drop it in the comments so someone scrolling at 2 a.m. knows they're not crazy for wanting proof over promises. Tap like to push this story to the next person who needs the courage to say no. Share it with the friend who keeps the receipts. And subscribe for more first-person family dramas where boundaries aren't betrayals, they're survival. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over.